Barakatah YAHAWAH, BaHa YAHAWASHI, BaHa RAWCHAA QADASH. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is Churches, the Ultimate Stumbling Block. And pretty much this lesson comes to inspiration of a scripture I was reading earlier. And it just started a bunch of thoughts that came after that. So I just typed in a particular word, stumbling blocks, and then started grabbing up some precepts and started thinking about these churches. But before we get into that, I just want to bring out something and say that Vocab was right. You know, the nations are going to receive an inheritance, you know, and I don't know how we missed this one, but, you know, let's get into it. Ecclesiasticus 39:21. A man need not to say, what is this? Wherefore is that? For he hath made all things for their uses. His blessing covered the dry land as a river, and watered it as a flood. As he hath turned the waters into saltiness, so shall the heathen inherit his wrath. So they do have an inheritance, so Vocab is right, but he ain't right as far as he got the inheritance wrong. The inheritance is the wrath of the Lord that's going to be upon them. All right, I got a kick out of that when I read this, so I wanted to just share it, real quick before we get started with the lesson. Now, as concerning the lesson, churches, the ultimate stumbling block. And when you look up this word stumbling block, it says a circumstance that causes difficulty or hesitation. Just pause there for a minute. And this is what's happening. There's difficulty going on between Jake out there that's in the churches, and there's a hesitation to come into the truth because of this major stumbling block called the church and Renaissance Christianity. So they're not able to cross the line because the Lord set that as a stumbling block. All right, and Lord's willing, this lesson, we get into it and it'll be edifying. Now down here it says, what does it mean, a stumbling block? It says an obstacle to progress. And that's exactly what it is. So the churches are the main obstacle, the ultimate obstacle to progress. What is the progress? To coming back to YAHAWASHI, to be built up correctly, the right way, the way the white men don't want you to be built up. It says an obstacle to progress, an impediment to belief or understanding, perplexity. Because what is perplexity is when someone is confused, very, 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 very much confused. And these different religions and churches and pastors and congregations, make it very difficult to come into the truth. But that's the Lord doing that. Because when we go to Matthew, which they never consider this because it is a stumbling block to them. This is Matthew chapter 7, verse 13. Enter ye in at the straight gate. For wide is it. So what is the straight gate? It's not talking about straight like as in a straight line. It's a different spelling of straight. It's not a straight line. It's a position of difficulty. I use the analogy of ships a lot, and how they have to navigate those ships through very hard ways. Some places are called straits, the Straits of Gibraltar, the Straits of Hormuz, and different other straits where you have bodies of land close enough to each other, and the water is very narrow. So they have to navigate very expertly through that. Well, that is what the truth is. It's a straight gate. It's a position of difficulty to get to because there are many stumbling blocks, pitfalls, snares, traps out there that when you try to get into it, it deflects you. It changes your direction. You know, it's that fork in the road that has other forks coming off of it. And there's only one way to go that is the correct way. And not very many find it. It says, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction. Now, if they were reading this with understanding, well, if they were reading, period. But if they were reading this with understanding, they would have to come to the conclusion that Christianity is a very wide gate. And that gate to get to the Lord, which He's the door, is a destructive way. What I mean by that, the wide gate is a destructive way, because to get to the Lord is very narrow. He is the door. But these religions are very vast. So they are wide gates. You know, there are broad ways that lead to destruction. And many there be which go in thereat. You see? And that's why a lot of our people are snared in these different churches out there. It says, because straight is the gate, right? Once again, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. Why? Because the Lord has to guide you through it. That's why it says, few there be that find it. And sometimes even those that find it find their way leaving it because it's too difficult to navigate. You know? So we got the word straight, right? S-T-R-A-I-T. Or should I say S-T-R-A-I-T. Stenos. Narrow, straight, doesn't say too much. It says narrow, from obstacles standing close about. You see? And any wrong turn could be your last. All right. So then go to the word narrow, and we had the word thlebo. Thlebo. It says to press, as grapes, press hard upon, right? Compressed way. Right. So when you compress something, it makes it more narrow. It makes it more difficult to navigate through. A narrow, straightened, contracted, metaphorically, to trouble, afflict, distress. Right. So this way is not a very popular way. But the way of the world, the Christianity of the world, or worldview of Christianity, is very acceptable to most because of the fact that it's easy to navigate. You could do whatever the hell you want. You have no restrictions. You know, you have no limitations. You could be what you want to be. You could have sex with who you want to have sex with. You could eat whatever you want to eat. You could live whatever lifestyle you want to live. So that's very appealing to most people. So once again, church is the ultimate stumbling block. So now, let's go to the first precept. This is the precept that actually started the whole thought pattern, which was the spirit that put all these different thoughts in my mind to get into it. So let's go to Zephaniah chapter 1. Let's start at verse 2. I will utterly consume all things from off the land, saith the Lord. Right. And this is really a future prophecy, because most will say, well, this was talking about back then, you know, during the land of Israel. But as you read on, and as this chapter progresses, you start to realize that, no, this ain't talking about back then, because the land of Israel wasn't destroyed in this fashion. You had the Babylonians that came in, removed you had the Assyrians first that came and removed the northern kingdom. Then the Babylonians came and removed Judah. And it was still there. The land was still there. As you read on in this, you come to the realization that this is when this happens, it's going to be a total annihilation. And this is really speaking about America. So it says, I will utterly consume all things from off the land, saith the Lord. I will consume man and beast, because there's not going to be anything left here. I will consume the fowls of the heaven and the fishes of the sea. Right, everything's going to get wiped out. Right here on the shores of America, Babylon the Great. And the stumbling blocks with the wicked, and I will cut off man from off the land, saith the Lord YAHAWASHI. And as soon as I read that, the first thought that came to my mind was what? Idols. And these churches are like these idols. Let me just look up this word stumbling blocks here, see what it says. I mean, we've looked it up before, but it says makashalah, which comes from kashal, to fall, stumble, right? So makashalah is of or from ma, and kashalah is to fall, to stumble. Overthrown mass. Stumbling block. Something overthrown. Decay. Ruin. Right? Because when something is overthrown, what happens? It decays. That's why it says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. That's how they've decayed, fallen apart, become destroyed or destructured, removed out of the original building and built into a latrine, an outhouse, you know, to get down to the nuts and bolts of it. Thing overthrown, figurative of kingdom, stumbling block of idol. See, and this is what came to mind when I read that. I didn't even go to the blue letter. This is the first thing that came to mind, which shows you it's the spirit. So these were idols. So it says, and the stumbling blocks with the wicked, and I will cut off man from off the land, saith the Lord Yahawah B'Shem Yahawashi. Let's read on. It says, I will also stretch out mine hand upon Judah. Yeah, because this is going to be the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom together, of the 2/3 that are going to be destroyed here in America. And upon all the inhabitants of Jerusalem, because Jerusalem is a people before it's a place, and I will cut off the remnant of Baal from this place. So back in the ancient world, Jake used to actually worship the different idols. They had the images. Even during the time of the Apostle Paul, during the time of YAHAWASHI, the Apostle Paul, the other apostles, you still had idols that Jake was worshiping. At that time, the updated version of it were the Greek and Roman gods, you know, but nevertheless, there were still actual idols. It says, and the name of the cherubims with the priests, right? The cherubims were the idolatrous priests. All right. The ones that actually, the ones that were experts at showing the devotees how to worship these different particular deities and gods, these fake gods, these idols. They knew everything about it. This is why you have what? Today you have these so-called pastors in the churches. And what are they good at? They are experts at teaching that fake gospel to the people the way they were taught by their master. You know, because not all of them, but a lot of them have gone to colleges to learn Esau's, you know, doctrine. And pretty much what these churches are, they're nothing more than idols. Let's go real quick to Deuteronomy. I wanted to get to another precept, but let's go here. Deuteronomy 28 and 36. And then I got another verse in here. It says, the Lord shall, Deuteronomy 28:36, the Lord shall bring thee and thy king, which thou shalt set over thee, which is King David, unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known. Right. And this is not talking about any other nation but here in America. Because we knew the Babylonians, we knew the Assyrians, we knew the Persians and the Medes, we knew about the Greeks and the Romans and all of that. This is talking about here in America. And there, meaning in this place where you're going to be brought to, shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone. That is these churches that have pretty much incorporated all of those ancient beliefs of all of those pagan gods and philosophies, religions, customs, whatever, all brought together into one, all wrapped together neatly into one with these different church organizations. And if you scrutinize them very carefully, you see that they all have some form of pagan worship amongst them, just plastered over with that Jesus joy juice, the triple J. No joy juice allowed. Inside joke. So it says, and there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone. So if you have these churches, you have the fake gods, the idols, you have customs, you have rites, you have, ways of worshiping it there has to be somebody to show you how to navigate in that particular religion. Well, that's where the chemarims come in, which are the idolatrous priests, right? So it says, the Lord, I will cut off the remnant of Baal from this place, because Baal, these churches are still worshiping Baal. And the name of the chemarims and with the priests. So all of these different pastors and preachers and deacons in the churches and all that, the Lord's going to cut all of them suckers off. And them that worship the hosts of heaven upon the housetops, right? Because that's what they're doing in these churches. When you look at the churches, the Roman Catholic Church, the insides of them are arched together. When you walk through it, you see the arches being arched into each other. Well, guess what? Those are nothing more than groves. Those are groves. Let's go to Deuteronomy. I think that's, let's try 16. Yep, YAHAWASHI. Deuteronomy 16:21. Thou shalt not plant thee a grove of any trees near unto what? The altar of the Lord thy power, which thou shalt make thee. Why? Because the groves is where Jake used to go to worship these different idols, because that's where the nations would go to worship these idols. The word there is Asherah. Sounds like one of those, the deity Asherah, one of those so-called, yep, Asherah. There you go, groves for idol worship. Look at that. A Babylonian Astarte, Canaanite goddess of fortune and happiness, to support control of Baal, her images. And this is why, what did they teach? What is the main doctrine of these churches? Prosperity. So Astarte, which is a Babylonian goddess, Canaanite goddess, is a goddess of what? Fortune and happiness. Because in their eyes, money, riches bring you happiness. But that's not the case. If anybody tells you that money can't buy happiness, they ain't got none. Look at this smile from ear to ear. Something like that. This one movie. That's a line from the movie, what's the name of that movie? Boiler Room. It says, the goddesses, her images, sacred trees or poles set up near an altar. See? And if you go back to that rat singer, the Pope, the one before the other rat, that the one that gave up his position. Okay, you just gave up your position, okay? Inside joke. They had a so-called mass, outside, and the altar where they were worshiping at was wrapped with trees and vines, and they were all out in the wilderness, because that's how they would worship those gods. So today, all of this is incorporated into these churches. As you look at the arches inside of these churches, especially the Roman Catholic Church, which is the mother of all the rest of these different churches. That's why the Lord called America the mother of harlots, because they allow you to worship anything you want here in America. And all of those arches are a representation of those groves where they would go to worship these different deities. And when you go to, I think that's either Isaiah 65 or Isaiah 66. Let me see something. Let me look at it, for it this way. Right, Isaiah 66:17. They that sanctify themselves and purify themselves in the gardens, see, behind one tree in the midst, right? These are the groves. Eating swine's flesh, is that not what they do in these churches? And the abomination and the mouse shall be consumed together, saith the Lord YAHAWASHI. Because all of that's going to be, this is why there's going to be a visitation upon Jake in these churches. That's why I said that the slain of the Lord shall be many. Because the way to get to destruction is very wide, and many there be which go in there at. So it says Zephaniah 1:5, and them that worship the hosts of heaven upon the housetops. And that's what pretty much these religions are, whether it's Roman Catholics, Christians, Muslims, they all worship in the host of heaven. This is why in the Christian church and Roman Catholic church, they worship the day of the Lord on what? On a Sunday. What is Sunday? That is devotion to the sun god. You know, in Islam, their symbol is what? The crescent moon and the star, because they worship the stars of heaven. That is a part of their whole, you know, that is a part of their whole religion, which in Deuteronomy, it speaks about that. It speaks against that. Deuteronomy 17:2. If there be found among you within any of thy gates, which the Lord thy power giveth thee, man or woman, that hath wrought wickedness in the sight of the Lord thy power in transgressing his covenant. Right. Because this is against the covenant. What is it? The worshiping of idols. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. And hath gone and served other gods and worshiped them, either the sun or moon, because this is what they would do. These different religions, these different so-called deities, these fake gods, these idols were venerated, you know, and they were pretty much, what's the word I'm looking for? They were given credence, I guess, for lack of better words, or I'm at a loss for words here, but they pretty much were, the worship of them was centered around either the sun or the moon or the stars or something like that, you know, so you could understand, or any of the hosts of heaven, which I have not commanded. See, so that was not supposed to be done. It says, and it be told thee, and thou hast heard of it, and inquired diligently, and behold, it be true, and the thing certain that such abomination is wrought in Israel, then shalt thou bring forth that man or that woman which hath committed that wicked thing unto thy gates, even that man or that woman, and shall stone them with stones till they die. See, that was it. That was the solution. And that would prevent, or at least, you know, scare the majority of the congregation into not doing that. You see? Because if this had been the ancient world, you would have been put to death. Inside joke. All right, so going back to Zephaniah. And them that worship the host of heaven upon the housetops, and them that worship and that swear by the Lord, and that swear by what? Malcolm, which is Milcom, which is also Molech. All right. Milcom is the god, so-called fake god, or the fake god of the Ammonites, but it's also synonymous with Molech, you know, which is a Phoenician, you know, / Canaanite deity. It says, and them that are turned back from the Lord. Right. And these churches are causing Jake to turn back from the Lord. And they have expert idolatrous priests out there that are experts at, you know, mimicry. They get their marching orders from the master, Esau. And what they do is they push that, they inject that poison into the mental vein of these people out here, of Jake. That's why for a long time, Jake was all effed up. And they still are. And the majority of the people that's messed up in the churches are women and older. The older people. The older Jakes. Because the younger generation, they're pretty much, their God now is technology. That's the new wave and the new demon. You know? The new idol is technology. It says, hold thy... and those that have not sought the Lord nor inquired for him. Hold thy peace at the presence of the Lord power, for the day of the Lord is at hand. See, this is how we know this. Not talking about back then. Because the day of the Lord has not happened yet. For the Lord hath prepared a sacrifice. He hath bid his guests. And that's the guests are who? The ones that are to be slain. And it shall come to pass in the day of the Lord's sacrifice, that I will punish the princes and the king's children, which are what? Jake today, and all such as are clothed in strange apparel. Now check this out. All those that are clothed in strange apparel. Let's go down to the word clothed. The word there is labash. Labash. To dress, wear, clothe, put on clothing, be clothed. And what is that? To take on the identity of these different, religions. Some of them are dressed a certain way, but overall it's talking about the way that they worship in those places. To put on clothes, be clothed. So you get the idea. In the Roman Catholic Church, they dress a certain way. In the Jehovah's Witness Church, they dress a certain way. So on and so forth. So now let's look up the word strange. And this is the Most High speaking to Israel. And this is why I said there's sometimes, and the word there is what? Nakarya, which is an actual word for an actual alien. But in the case of Jake, when Jake is being called that, as we call them, the Israelite foreigners, they are unknown or unfamiliar. Why? Because they've taken on and they put something else on that doesn't pertain to them. So they became strange. Matter of fact, let's go real quick to Jeremiah chapter 2. They became strange. 2 and 20. It says, for of old time I have broken thy yoke and burst thy bands, and thou saidest, I will not transgress. When upon every high hill and under every green tree, those groves, thou wanderest, playing the harlot. Why? Because the Most High is our husband. Yet I had planted thee a noble vine. You got to understand, man, we are nobility in exile. We are royalty. But we've been reduced to peasantry. Wholly a right seed, because the whole nation was righteous. How? Through the law, statutes, and commandments that the Lord gave us. That's how we became a holy people. And that's what separated us from all nations. How then art thou turned into what? The degenerate plant of a strange vine unto me. And this is what happened. You took this supreme, seed, this supreme, the la creme de la creme grape, and turned it into some wild Irish rose wine or some night train or Cisco or whatever crackhead, drink out there, that they have today, whatever the name. I don't keep up with that. Cisco back in the days, you had all that madness. Today you got new shit, which is the same shit, but just even worse. All right. So we became a strange vine unto the Lord. When you look up the word strange, once again, this is dealing with Israel. When you look up the word strange, once again, is the word nakarya, which is what? Let's go back. Unknown or unfamiliar, which is nakarya. So Jake became unknown or unfamiliar to the Most High, a strange vine. And this is why when you go to the New Testament, those Gentiles that salvation was open to were those strange vines, the unknown vines, the unfamiliar vines that were being brought back and grafted back into the commonwealth of Israel, because they are Israelites. So they had to go. The Lord sent his men out to reconcile and bring those back. You cannot be reconciled to something you were never a part of. All right. So let's go back. So, and then we looked up the word strange, which is nakarya, which is unfamiliar, unknown, and then apparel. Let's see if that comes up as a separate. Yep, apparel, which is labash, malabash, which is clothing. Which is what? The way that Jake is immersed in these different religions. They're taking on the identity of those religions. They look like the people that they represent. Smooth face, you know, all swole up from all the pork and lobster and all that shit that they eating, you know. So let's go from there. To build on that strange apparel, let's go to Genesis, because this is exactly what Adam and Eve did. Genesis 3:7, and the eyes of them both were open. Why? Because they ate of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. These churches are off that same vibration, off of the vibration of the evil, the tree of evil. So their eyes were open because they were introduced to this new way that led them astray. It says, and they knew that they were what? Naked. They knew that they had sinned. It says, and they sewed fig leaves together and made them aprons. Right. So they took on those, they tried to assimilate into that culture. You know, at one time you had Jake that was wearing the dashikis, you know, getting on into that Hamitic, you know, vibe. But in the case of Roman Catholics and these other religions, it's taking on the identity of those religions as a suit of clothing, making Jake what? Strange, making them heathens, making them uncircumcised. So they have to be circumcised now, what? Through their mind. Let's go real quick to Deuteronomy 10 and 16. It says, circumcise therefore the foreskin of your heart, and be no more stiff-necked, right? Because the mind had to be changed. That's why they had to be reborn. That's why they had to put off the old man and put on the new man. So like, I know you brothers are putting up some beautiful precepts. I haven't been able to get to it, but let me read this one that the elder Yahawah put up. Isaiah 31, woe to the rebellious children, saith the Lord, that take counsel, but not of me, and that cover with a covering, but not of my spirit, that they may add sin to sin. And as he said, covering equals other philosophies, right? And if you look at the practices of these other philosophies, they have a way about them to give you an identity. All right, so now let's go from there. Genesis 3 and 7. Well, we read that already. So they made themselves aprons. They sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. So those are what? Those strange apparels. That strange apparel that the kings, the princes, and the king's children were wearing, which is Jake today. We were all into that until the Lord removed us out of it and gave us a new set of clothing. He gave us that the attire that's fire, the true attire. All right, so let's go from there. Let's go. Well, we already read Jeremiah 2, but let's go to Jeremiah 2 again. Because let's go to the 9th verse. Jeremiah 2 and 9. Wherefore I will yet plead with you, saith Yahawah B'Shem Yahushai, and with your children's children will I plead. And this is what is happening right now. The Lord is pleading with Israel, with their children's children, all the way today. Remember, this the third or fourth generation. For pass over the isles of Kittim, and see, and send unto Kedar, and consider diligently, and see if there be such a thing. Hath a nation changed their gods, which are yet no gods? Here it is. These nations that have the gods that they have are false gods. They haven't changed them. It really wasn't until the Renaissance period that that the other nations started to commit fornication, so to speak, or get involved in the American way. But as far as their gods are concerned, they still worship their gods. It says, but my people have changed their glory, which is the Most High, Yahawah B'Shem Yahushai, for that which doth not profit. See? It has a presence. It has, certain benefits to it. But really, when you get into it, it leads to nothing but death. It says, be astonished, O ye heavens, at this, and be horribly afraid. Be ye very desolate, saith the Lord Yahawah B'Shem Yahushai. For my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters. That's why Jake is out there thirsty. That's why Jake is out there in the valley of the dry bones. To this very day, you still have dry bones out there. And hewed them out cisterns, broken cisterns that can hold no water, right? Because those philosophies out there, they can't quench your thirst. That's why when the elect are in there, they're always still searching. Even though they think they found something, they're always still searching. Because that shit is like a leaky vessel. It keeps running out and keeps running out until you come to the living waters that YAHAWASHI spoke about and never thirst again. It says, is Israel spoiled? Is he a homeborn slave? Why is he spoiled? I'm sorry, is Israel a servant? Is he a homeborn slave? Why is he spoiled? So now let's go from there. Let's go back to Deuteronomy 28. And now let's go to the 63rd verse. It says, and it shall come to pass that as the Lord rejoice over you to do you good and to multiply you, so the Lord will rejoice over you to destroy you and to bring you to naught, and you shall be plucked from off the land whither thou goest to possess it. And the Lord shall what? Scatter thee among all people, from the one end of earth even unto the other. So Israel, the Israelites are all over the planet, among every nation. And some do not look like your typical Israelites, so-called Negro, Latino, Native American Indians. They are mixed in among these nations. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. That's dealing with these churches. That's why, as the name of the lesson is, churches, the ultimate stumbling block. All right? So, let's go from there. Let's go to Jeremiah 6. Jeremiah 6 and 21. It says, therefore, thus saith the Lord, behold, I will lay stumbling blocks before this people. So who laid these stumbling blocks? The Lord did. And the fathers and the sons together shall fall upon them. The neighbor and his friends shall perish. Right? Because that way leads to what? To destruction. You know, read, what is that? I believe that's Proverbs 7. Her ways lead to hell or something like that. Because that is the way to go to be destroyed. That is that wide gate, the broad way that the YAHAWASHI spoke about that leads to destruction. And many there be which go in thereat. Now let's go from there to Psalms 69. I love this because the way that King David put it here, I love it because this explains everything of why Jake can't get, they can't get the truth. And this is King David writing this, right? But it indirectly, it's YAHAWASHI, because it really is YAHAWASHI. Even though King David wrote it, but it's YAHAWASHI. The Lord put the spirit on King David to put a curse on Israel, but it's really YAHAWASHI doing it. Psalms 69:22, because when you read the 21st verse, it says, they gave me also gall for my meat. They didn't do that to King David. And in my thirst, they gave me vinegar to drink. That was what they did to YAHAWASHI. So even though that happened in the future, when you go back, YAHAWASHI put a curse on certain Israelites even from back then. It says, let their table become a snare before them. Right, that's why it says that all tables are full of vomit. And what table is that talking about? That's talking about the table to serve the Lord, that altar to serve the Lord. It's a stumbling block, it's a snare, a trap. And that which should be for their welfare, which is what? The truth. Let it become a trap. That's why you go to church. They have the Bible. They don't read the Bible, but the point is that they have the Bible. That's why the Apostle Paul said, let's go real quick to Galatians 1 and 6. It says, I marvel that you are so soon removed from him that called you into the grace of YAHAWASHI unto another gospel. And those churches are another gospel. The churches are pretty much the world view gospel of Christianity. Not the view of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, the world view. And we do not accept the worldview, of these so-called churches. It says, which is not another. It says, which is not another, but there be some that trouble you. See, so it's not another. Why? Because it's the same book they're using, but it's just another meaning that they bring into it. And the meaning that they bring into it is the Renaissance or white supremacy meaning. It says, which is not another, but there be some that trouble you and would pervert the gospel of Yahawashi. And there's a great perversion going on of the gospel. And even now that the truth is out, there's a great perversion going on. Matastrefo. Almost sound like Mephistopheles. To turn around, right. So they're perverting it. They're turning it around into a different meaning. So going back, matter of fact, I'm going to read this precept because this was on the list. I'm going to read it. The brother put it up. Ecclesiastes 39:24 and 25. As his ways are plain unto the holy, so are they stumbling blocks unto the wicked. Beautiful. That's how the spirit rolls. For the good are good things created from the beginning, so evil things for sinners. Right. And that's, those are the sinners. These jakes that are in these different philosophies. So going back here, Psalm 69:23, let their eyes be darkened that they see not, and make their loins continually to shake. So there's an actual angel that's blocking Jake from getting the truth. When you go to Isaiah, the 6th chapter, there's an actual angel that was commissioned by the Most High Yahweh to blind the eyes of certain Israelites that they may not get the truth. That's something, man. And until the Lord don't pull that angel back, Jake can't come out of that. It says, pour out thine indignation upon them, and let thy wrathful anger take hold of them. Let their habitation be desolate, and let none dwell in their tents. For they persecuted him whom thou hast smitten. Right, Yahawashi. And it's crazy because they are the ones that take up the Lord, what they think the Lord is, in their mouth. But they are the main ones that have actually forsaken the Lord. It says, and they talk to the grief of those whom thou hast wounded. Right, dealing with Yahawashi, dealing with the prophets. It says, add iniquity unto their iniquity, which is sin compounded. And let them not come into thy righteousness. The righteousness of the Lord is this truth. And this truth, when you come into it, when the Lord brings you into it, and you receive it and keep it, guess what? There is salvation accompanied with it. He that endureth to the end, the same shall be saved. Let them be blotted out of the book of the living, and not be written with the righteous. Because why? They are to be destroyed. And when we go to 1 Peter, it speaks about that they were appointed to this. It says, but I am poor and sorrowful. So that goes into something else, dealing with Yahawashi. So this right here is pretty much a curse that Yahawashi put on Israel through King David. So let's go from there. Let's go to the next precept, which the elder Zakar just put up on the comment board from the New York camp. Let's go to it. Isaiah. We're going to start a little up above that. Isaiah 8. Show you how the spirit rolls, baby. Isaiah 8 and 11. For the Lord spake thus to me with a strong hand, and instructed me that I should not walk in the way of this people, saying, right, because Jake, that whole Christianity thing, at one time it was very alluring. It had a presence with it, but it's losing that lackluster right now. It's losing it. But at one time it had that, and that's why the Lord told Isaiah, don't go in that direction. Say ye not a confederacy. What is a confederacy? Meaning a union. Right? To all them to whom this people shall say a confederacy, right? Which is what? These different religions. Which the Lord already said not to make any contracts with them. Neither fear ye their fear, nor be afraid, right? Because their fear is what? what is taught in these churches, hell, and things of that nature. But when it comes to the real, actual, factual breakdowns of the scriptures, they don't fear. Better not eat no pork. The Lord gonna destroy you. Oh man, what you talking about, man? Shit, I've been snacking on from the rooter to the tutor. Ever since I was a little boy, ever since I can remember, man. I don't know what the hell you talking about. So they don't fear what they're supposed to fear. They fear the made-up fairy tales like hell and other things like that. Sanctify the Lord of hosts himself, right, Yahawah, BaHa YAHAWASHI, and let him be your fear, and let him be your dread. So how do we know to fear the Lord? By the things that are in the scriptures that he said don't do. It says, and he shall be for a sanctuary, right? A sanctuary is a safe place, a stronghold. So he's going to be a sanctuary to some, but for a stone of stumbling and for a rock of offense to both the houses of Israel, both houses, the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom. For a jinn, which is a trap, a snare, and for a snare to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And let's see. Spare me 1 second. Let's see if it'll come up like this. Nope. Nope. I believe that's in Jeremiah. Let me try something. Beautiful. Baruch Yahweh Shemel Shah. Here it is. Jeremiah 5:7. How shall I pardon thee for this? Thy children have forsaken me and sworn by them that I know gods. This is what we're dealing with, these churches. When I have fed them to the full, right? And the Lord's the one that gives Jake, everything. Then they committed adultery and assembled themselves by troops in the harlots' houses. See? In the harlots' houses. As the 27th verse. As a cage is full of birds, so are their houses full of deceit. Therefore they are become great and waxen rich. But the point is that they assembled themselves by troops in the harlots' houses, which is what? These different religions. All right. So that was it on that. Where we at now? Back in Isaiah 8. And now we go to 15th verse. And many among them shall stumble, right? Because of what? Because of these snares that have been set up, these stumbling blocks. And they stumbled at the stumbling stone, which is YAHWASHI, and fall and be broken and be snared and be taken. Yeah, but eventually they will come back in the kingdom of heaven through the elect. Bind up the testimony, seal the law among my disciples, because not every Israelite out there is a disciple of the Lord. This is why Elder Pastor Harges did a video. Not just because you're an Israelite means you're of the chosen or something along those lines. The Israel of the Most High are the chosen or the elect of the nation of Israel. And I will wait upon the Lord that hideth his face from the house of Jacob, and I will look for him. Right. It says, behold, and the only way we can look for the Lord is if he draws us. Behold, I and the children whom the Lord hath given me are for signs and for wonders in Israel from the Lord of hosts, which dwelleth in Mount Zion. This begins with YAHWASHI. It also applies to the prophets, because the prophets are the ones that are wondered at, because they bear the spirit of Yahweh BaHa YAHWASHI. This is why the Apostle Peter said, If you suffer as a Christian, happy are ye, for the Spirit of Yahawashi resteth upon you. In so many words. And when they shall say unto you, seek unto them that have familiar spirits, and unto wizards that peep and that mutter, right? And this is what you have in the churches. They're seeking unto familiar spirits, unto wizards, you know, because they're what? They're the chimerims, or the idolatrous priests. And that's what these pastors and preachers and deacons and and the like in these different plantation Christianity churches are. Should not a people seek unto their power for the living to the dead? So pretty much what we should be seeking for is Yahweh Bashem Yahawashi. But Jake ain't seeking that. The law and to the testimony, if they speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them. Means Yahweh Bashem Yahawashi is not shining in them. And that's how you know. This is why the scriptures say, try the spirit, whether they are of the Most High or not. Because these people that go to church, they claim that they believe in the Lord, but when you start going into that Bible, they reject it. Because they're none of his at this time, at this point. That's why it says, not all Israel are of Israel. And they shall pass through it, hardly be stead and hungry. Right, because famine is coming. Plagues are coming. Pestilence is coming. And Jake is going to get caught out there with their pants below their ankles. And it shall come to pass that when they shall be hungry, they shall fret themselves and curse their king and their power and look upward. Right. You're going to curse all of that you learned. You're going to curse. You're going to curse the king, the ones that are in charge, whether it's politicians in authority, whether it's religious, leaders, and that whole shit that you're worshiping, and look upward. But what did the Lord say? In their affliction they will seek me early, but it's going to be too late at that point for a lot of these Israelites out here. It says, and they shall look unto the earth and behold trouble and darkness, dimness of anguish, and they shall be driven to darkness. Yeah, because you're not going to find the way to salvation unless you are part of the elect. You see? So let's go from there. Let's go to Ezekiel, as the two high priests used to say it. High priest Yaakov and high priest Ariel. Ezekiel 14:3. Son of man, these men have set up their idols in their heart and put the stumbling blocks of their iniquity before their face. Should I be inquired at all by them? Yeah, that's dealing with these pastors in the churches, because they hold the doctrine of those idolatrous priests. Matter of fact, building off of that, let's go real quick to Revelation 2. This is a good time to bring this one in. Revelation 2:14. But I have a few things against thee, because thou hast there them that hold the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to what? Cast a stumbling block before the children of Israel, because these doctrines are stumbling blocks. To eat things sacrificed unto idols and to commit fornication. So this scripture here ties the whole lesson together. It ties everything together to show you that these doctrines are which are these religions, are a worship of Balaam, and they are a stumbling block to Israel. So going back, verse 4, Ezekiel 14:4, therefore speak unto them and say unto them, thus saith the Lord power, every man of the house of Israel that setteth up his idols in his heart. See? Because today they're setting it up in their mind. But is it in your mind? Inside joke. So they're setting that up in their mind, in their heart. Because they're taking in that Renaissance Christianity, memorizing it and teaching it to others. That's why it's a never-ending cycle in these churches. And putteth the stumbling block of his iniquity before his face. Right. And how do they do that? By presenting that to others. And that stumbling block is what they trip over their whole life. It says, and cometh to the prophet, right? I, the Lord, will answer him that cometh according to the multitude of his idols. Because when they come to the prophets, what's going to be told them? That they're going to be destroyed, unless they repent from that wickedness. It says that I may take the house of Israel in their own heart. See, that's why there has to be a being reborn again, because they are all estranged from me through their idols. As we said before, sometimes every once in a while you run across a name stranger or estranged, and it applies to the nation of Israel. The word estranged here is zawar. That's another word for actual stranger. But in this case, it would be like, you have a husband and wife. Just bear with me one second. You have a husband and a wife, right? And when they split, they may not be living together, but they split. What is that called? That's called the woman becomes an estranged wife. So an estranged wife meaning is a wife who no longer lives with her husband. So we became estranged. This is why there's certain times where the word nakar or this word zawar, which are words that actually mean actual heathens, every once in a while it applies to the Israelites. And this is how the New Testament makes sense when you understand that those Gentiles are the Israelites that became estranged to the Most High and are now being brought back to him by YAHAWASHI. YAHAWASHI. All right. So what caused that estrangement? That degenerate vine action? Those idols. Those goddamn idols, man. It says, therefore say unto the house of Israel, thus saith the Lord power, repent and turn yourselves from your idols. And that's what we tell these people in the churches. But a lot of them ain't going to get it because they were appointed to that, to be destroyed. My brother just put Jake's church is a joke. Yep, not to be taken seriously. Jake's movies always turn church into a comedy. Yeah, and that's whenever you see a movie that's dealing with the church, whether it's the black church or whatever other church, is always about comedy, as the young elder just put on there. It says, and turn away your faces from all your abominations. For every one of the house of Israel or of the stranger that sojourneth in Israel. Now, what is the stranger that sojourneth in Israel? This is an Israelite that stays there temporarily. He wasn't born in the land. Or if he was born in the land, he lives in another land now. So he is estranged from that land. So when he comes to that land, because 3 times a year the males would come to Jerusalem, what would happen? He would be a sojourner there. What is a sojourner? One who's there for a moment or for a while and then leaves. And that word there for stranger and sojourneth, when you look both of those up, stranger is gar, which means to stay temporarily. Sojourneth, gawar. Gawar. To sojourn, abide, dwell in, dwell with, remain, inhabit, be a stranger, be continuing, surely. Dwell for a time. Temporarily dwell. See, this is why you have to go into the actual language of the scripture to understand, because when you read the English, it keeps on saying stranger, world, Gentile. So in order to get the understanding, you have to go to the actual words in the original language to be able to get a better understanding of what that scripture is saying. The brother here put aliens, apolotrio, to alienate, estrange, right? And they became alienated. strangers. All right, so that's pretty much it there. Let's go back. It says, for everyone of the house of Israel or of the stranger that sojourneth in Israel, temporary stay. That's where you had a law to those who were homeborn and to the stranger that sojourned. You see? Which separated, and the one that was actually born there usually got more rights than the one that was sojourning of Israel. Which separated himself from me and set up his idols in his heart. Once again, heart. We're dealing with the heart. This is where these idols have been transferred to in these times, these churches, the ultimate stumbling block. And putteth the stumbling block of his iniquity before his face, and cometh to a prophet to inquire of him concerning me, I, the Lord, will answer him by myself. Right. The Most High is going to answer him by himself. And I will set my face against that man and will make him a sign and a proverb. That's why what would the prophets do? Curse Israel out. Isaiah 58:1. You know, show my people their transgression, in the house of Israel their sins. And I will cut him off from the midst of my people. And you shall know that I am the Lord. And if the prophet be deceived, when he hath spoken a thing, I, the Lord, have deceived that prophet. And I will stretch out my hand upon him and will destroy him from the midst of my people, Israel. And that's why YAHWASHI said, no man can come to me except the Father draw him. These snares and traps and stumbling blocks, they were all set up by the Most High for his purpose. It says, and they shall bear the punishment of their iniquity. The punishment of the prophet shall be even as the punishment of him that seeketh unto him. Right, so these idolatrous priests and these churches, the people they leading are going to be destroyed, and they're going to be destroyed. That the house of Israel may go no more astray from me. Right. By what? By these idols. That's what you have today in a form of religion, in the form of these churches. Neither be polluted anymore with all their transgressions, but that they may be my people, and I may be their power, saith the Lord Yahweh B'Shem El-Shai. And you have to put the old man off and put on the new man. And be clothed with the garments of light, so to speak, and not with strange apparel. All right, let's go from that Isaiah 57. And 13. It says, when thou criest, let thy companies deliver thee. Right. Go and cry unto those gods and those deities that you've been worshiping all these years. Your sweet Jesus, joy juice, you know, and all of that. The Babylonian venom. It says, but the wind shall carry them all away, because the destruction is coming. It says, vanity shall take them, but he that putteth his trust in me shall possess the land. Yep. And shall inherit my holy mountain. That's right. And shall say, cast ye up, prepare the way. And that's what's happening right now. The way is being prepared. The house of David, the tabernacles of David are being built up. The highway is all the rubble, and the crooked paths are being removed out of the way. And a straight path, a straight narrow path is being made for the people of the Lord, the elect of the nation of Israel. Take up the stumbling block out of the way of my people. And the major stumbling block that is among the people of the Most High are these churches. And the word for stumbling block, makashawal, stumbling means or occasion of stumbling. Stumbling block means or occasion of stumbling. Pretty much saying the same thing, which we read earlier, that an obstacle to progress. An impediment to belief or understanding, perplexity. Okay. So let's go from there. Let's go to Hosea chapter 2. And these churches have been the major stumbling block to Jake. Especially that sweet Jesus joy juice that Jake is pickled in. Hosea 2:16. And it shall come, and it shall be at that day, we're in that day now, saith the Lord, that thou shalt call me Ishi. The word Ishi comes from the Hebrew word Ayashia. There's two words. Ayashia, which is my my husband. You have here Ayash, and then you have here Ayash Yah. The Yah at the end makes it my. Ayash Yah, my husband. Ayash Yah, or my man. Man, husband, all right? And it says, and it shall be at that day, saith the Lord, that thou shalt call me Ishi, or Ayashya, and shall call me no more Ba'ali, or Ba'alyah, my Lord. Not in this, because there's nothing wrong with calling somebody my Lord, you know, but when you think of the term Ba'ali or Balaam, you're thinking about those idols that Jake was worshiping today in the form of these churches. So you're not going to call the Lord Ba'alyah anymore. In other words, giving reverence to these different idols as being the Most High. Because as the Lord said here in Isaiah 48 and 11, for mine own sake, even for mine own sake will I do it, for how should my name be polluted? And I will not give my glory unto another. So the Most High is not going to give his glory unto another. So that's why you're not going to be calling the Lord Ba'ali no more. For I, the Most High, YAHAWASHI, will take away the names of Balaam out of her mouth, and they shall be remembered. They shall no more be remembered by their name. No more that sweet Jesus and, you know, Jehovah and all of those different names that they've given the Most High. Yahweh and all of that. YAHAWAH, Ba'ashem YAHAWASHI. That's what the remembrance of the Lord. That is his name to all generations forever. Forever, ever, forever, ever. Now let's go. We're almost done. Let's go to Wisdom of Solomon. Let's go to Wisdom of Solomon. Chapter 14. And verse 8. Going to read a couple of verses and then one more, maybe two more, and that's it. Wisdom of Solomon 14 and 8. It says, but that which is made with hands is cursed. Right, dealing with the idols. As well it as he that made it. He, because he made it, and it, because being corruptible, it was called God. Right. And pretty much this, the idol makers of the past, right, the ones that made the idols, the artificers that made the idols, and so on and so forth, today, they would be these preachers, you know, that push that idol worship on Jake. For the ungodly and his ungodliness are both alike hateful unto the Most High. For that which is made shall be punished together with him that made it. Therefore, even upon the idols of the Gentiles, the actual nations, shall there be a visitation. Because the Lord is going to destroy them. Because in the creature of the Most High, so these churches are going to be vanquished. These different statues and all that, pictures of Caesar Borgia and all that, they're going to be destroyed. Because in the creature of the Most High, they are become an abomination. Because people have reverence in them like that's actually the Most High and his Son. And stumbling blocks to the souls of men. And a snare to the feet of the unwise. Why? Because they walk in a way that is not right, that is not pleasing to the Lord. And it's a snare, a trap. So the snares have already been set. Only the ones that are part of the elect are going to be able to maneuver around them. For the devising of idols was the beginning of spiritual fornication. Which spiritual fornication is what? Spiritual adultery. And the invention of them, the corruption of life. This is the main thing that the Most High was pissed off about with Jake, the goddamn idol worship. For neither were, that's why the Gentiles in the New Testament are Israelites that had to be removed from the worshiping of idols. For neither were they from the beginning, neither shall they be forever. For by the vainglory of men they entered into the world, and therefore shall they come shortly to an end. Because there will be a visitation upon these idols, meaning these different religions today, because they don't necessarily have idols, even though they still do, you know, but the main source now today are these different churches. Jeremiah 51:17, every man is bruised by his knowledge. That's why it says that when Jake worshiped the Lord, they're ignorant of the Most High's righteousness. It says every founder is confounded by the graven image. See? For his molten image is falsehood, and there is no breath in them. They are vanity, the work of errors. In the time of their visitation, they shall perish, because they're going to be destroyed. And the last precept I'm going to leave you with is 2 Corinthians chapter 2. And we're going to go straight to the point. Verse 16. It says, to the one we are a savor of death unto death. That's the ones that are not to receive this knowledge. This word is going to be distasteful to them. They're not going to like it. And to the other, the savior of life unto life. Right. And there's some that's going to find this meal very tasty and get into it, because they are the ones that will be received unto salvation. And who is sufficient for these things? The ones that are unto death to death, the ones that are unto life to life. So wherever category Jake fits in, they're going to fall into either one of those two categories. There ain't going to be no in the middle category for those that are undecided. You know, it's either unpleasant to you or pleasant. It says, for we are not as many which corrupt the word of the Most High, but as of sincerity, but as of the Most High, in the sight of the Most High, speak we in YAHAWASHI. That's right. So with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. This has been Church is the Ultimate Stumbling Block. Shalom.